So how is 2016 shaping up?
Technology is causing massive changes in just about every industry, but particularly perhaps one of the most affected is financial services. One of the things we're looking at the moment is what could banking look like in 10 years' time? And we're painting different scenarios for what it could look like, but all of them look quite different from today.
Patrick, how has 2016 been for you so far, from a global perspective?
Well, actually, it looks a lot better now than it did back at the beginning of the year. If you remember, back at the beginning of the year, people were terribly worried. Markets were, falling sharply. The oil price was sinking through the floor. Commodity prices generally were heading down. People were very worried about some kind of hard landing for China and what ramifications that could have for the rest of the world. So since then, actually, things in many respects have got a bit better. The oil prices started to recover. Markets have stabilized, at least relative to the sort of volatility we saw at the beginning of the year. China now looks to have at least avoided a hard landing in the short term. So in some respects, the world looks a bit better. Having said that, though, as you suggested, the IMF are reducing their forecasts for global growth. Most people, I think, have become a little bit more pessimistic over the last 6 months or so about global growth prospects.
In terms of the challenges and the risks, isn't it all about China still?
China, in recent years, has seen an enormous run-up in debt, akin to the sort of growth in debt that we saw in the Western world prior to the crisis. The speed of growth of debt in China is, if anything, faster than the sort of speed of growth of debt we saw in the United States and other countries in the subprime boom, prior to the crisis. What happens if that debt, if suddenly people can't pay back all that borrowing? But the other, I think, is that what it suggests is that Chinese growth is increasingly reliant on credit. Because the debt to GDP ratio for China is going up and up, what that implies is that debt is rising faster than the economy, is growing faster than the economy. And, history suggests in just about every country that's happened that it doesn't end nicely. What the Chinese government are trying to do is push the problem down the road by encouraging the economy to carry on growing. But I think it's a question of how far you can kick the can down the road before it just becomes impossible. You have to push harder and harder to keep the economy moving. I would have thought within the next 3 to 4 years we'll have some kind of crisis in China.